At Sunday dinner, my brother joked, "You'll be alone forever. At least your job gives you some worth." The table laughed. I left without finishing my drink. 2 months later, his company needed emergency funding, and the investor? Me. I walked into that boardroom, looked him dead in the eyes and said, "Funny seeing you here." And he looked me dead in the face across the table and said I'd be alone forever, but at least my job gave me some worth. That was the moment everything shifted. Everyone laughed. My mom, my dad, even my cousins who barely knew what was going on. The whole table lit up like it was the best line Jason ever delivered. No one thought it was cruel. No one thought it went too far. Just another classic Jason joke, at my expense as always. I didn't respond. I didn't look at anyone. I stood up, left half a glass of wine on the table and walked out the front door without another word. No coat. No goodbye. Just silence. It wasn't the first time he humiliated me in front of the family, but it was the last time I stayed quiet about it. Because 2 months later his company came crawling for money, and the investor sitting across the table from him was me. But let me back up. Jason's been a walking headline in our family since we were kids. First to get a car. First to move out. First to raise a round of funding. My parents bragged about his company like they were co-founders. Meanwhile, I was invisible. What they didn't understand was that I wasn't just working a boring finance job. I was building something real. Quietly. No flashy LinkedIn post. No startup parties. Just results. I was an early investor in 3 companies that went public. I just closed a fund double the size of our last one. But to Jason and everyone else at that table, I was just the quiet sister with no husband and too many spreadsheets. So when I got the pitch deck, I almost didn't open it. But I recognized the name. Jason's company was bleeding out. I'd heard the whispers before, but now I had it in writing. They were out of runway. They needed $5 million fast, bridge funding to stay afloat while they scrambled for a Series B. I stared at the deck for a while. His photo was still on the team slide. Smiling like everything was fine. The deck was polished, the tone desperate. And the best part? They had no idea I was looking at it. I called the partner on our fund and told him I wanted to lead the meeting. I didn't explain why. I just said, "Trust me." The meeting was set for the following Thursday. Our office. Noon. I made sure I was already sitting in the boardroom when they walked in. Jason came in last, flipping through a notepad like he had anything new to say. He looked up and stopped walking. I looked him in the eye and said, "Funny seeing you here." Jason froze when he saw me. He glanced at the partner beside me, then at the firm logo on the glass wall, then back at me like his brain couldn't piece it together. I didn't say anything else. Just sat there and waited. The rest of his team awkwardly found their seats. His co-founder did most of the talking. Pitch deck slides, market opportunity, user retention, burn rate, projected growth. I listened, nodded occasionally, asked a few targeted questions. The usual routine. Jason didn't say much after the initial shock. He kept stealing glances at me like I might suddenly disappear and he'd wake up. When the numbers were done, I slid the deck back across the table and leaned back. "We like the market. We like your product. But here's what I'm offering. Not a bridge round. An acquisition. Full buyout. All assets. Team optional. Jason non-essential." Silence. His co-founder blinked. Jason sat up like he hadn't heard it right. "This isn't what we were expecting. We're looking for emergency capital, not a takeover." "Right," I said. "That's why it's called an emergency." Jason finally spoke. His voice didn't have the bite anymore. "You think this is funny? You're doing this to prove a point?" I looked him in the eye. "No," I said. "The point's already been proven. This is just business." They didn't accept, of course. Pride is expensive. Jason got up first. Didn't shake my hand. Didn't look at me when he walked out. The co-founder stayed behind a second longer. Told me quietly that he'd be in touch. I already knew he would be. A week passed. Then their name came up again, this time on a list of companies rumored to be cutting staff. Then a blog post. Then a leak. For weeks later I got the call. Same co-founder. Different tone. The buyout was back on the table. This time, Jason wasn't part of the conversation. By the time the paperwork came through, Jason's name had already been removed from everything that mattered. No ownership. No board seat. No role. He didn't even know the deal was happening. His co-founder claimed Jason was taking a step back to focus on other things, but I knew what that meant. He'd been forced out. Probably didn't go quietly either. I could imagine the meltdown. The yelling. The part where he realized he wasn't essential after all. I signed the documents on a Thursday morning. Quiet office. No press. No celebration. Just my initials on the last page, under a number that started with 8 and ended with a lot of zeros. Technically, I didn't need the company. My firm had other, stronger investments. But I bought it anyway. Not to hurt Jason. That part had already happened. I did it because I could. Because no one in my family had ever believed I was capable of something like this. Not because I wasn't smart enough, but because I wasn't loud enough. That weekend I got a call. Blocked number. I didn't answer. Then a text. I know what you did. You think you're better than everyone now. No name, but it didn't need one. I ignored it. A week later at family dinner, Jason didn't show. First time he'd skipped in over a year. My mom said he was dealing with something at work. My dad muttered something about stress. No one looked at me, but I could feel it. They knew. Not everything, but enough. My aunt asked how work was going. For once, she didn't sound sarcastic. My cousin said he saw an article about a firm acquiring Jason's company. Didn't mention my name, but he looked at me a second too long after saying it. No one joked about my love life. No one laughed at my career. And I didn't say a word. Jason still hadn't called me directly. Not a real call. Just the one angry text. But I knew it was coming. I just didn't expect him to show up at my office. He showed up without warning. No email. No calendar request. Not even a text. My assistant buzzed me in the middle of a partner meeting. There's a Jason Cruz in the lobby, she said. Says he's your brother. I didn't respond right away. She added, should I tell him you're unavailable? I told her to send him up. When he walked into the office, I barely recognized him. Same face but different. Like someone had turned the volume down on him. His shirt was rumpled, his jaw hadn't seen a razor in days, and whatever confidence he used to wear like armor was gone. Just a man standing in front of his sister, hoping she'd forgotten who he used to be. He glanced around. I knew what he was seeing. The skyline view, the custom furniture, the framed articles with my name under bold headlines. He didn't sit down. Just hovered near the edge of the desk like he didn't know if he was allowed to. Company's done, he said. Co-founder screwed me. Lawyers are involved. I didn't say anything. He started talking faster, like if he kept going I wouldn't interrupt. They diluted me out in the last minute. Backroom deal. I should have seen it coming. Everyone's ghosting me. All the people I helped. Nothing. I'm starting something new, leaner. Smarter. I just need a little backing too. I raised my hand. He stopped. You're here asking me for money? He nodded once. So, like it hurt. Not a handout. Just backing. I have a plan. You double your return minimum. I looked at him and saw the same boy who used to shove me into walls and say I was too soft to matter. The teenager who told our parents I was weird and probably broken. The adult who once said no man would ever take me seriously. And now he was asking me to fund his comeback. I stood up. Walked to the window. Let the silence sit. You humiliated me for years, I said finally. You told our family I was nothing. You said I'd be alone forever. You made sure no one took me seriously, not even them. And now when everything's collapsed, now you want me involved. He stayed quiet. There wasn't much he could say. You want the truth, Jason? I turned to face him. I could fund your new company. I could write that check today. But I won't. Because I don't invest in things I don't believe in. And right now you're a bad bet. He stared at me like he couldn't believe it. Like somehow deep down he still thought he had the upper hand. I opened the door. You should go. He walked out without looking back. That night I sat at the same dining table where he made the joke. This time he wasn't there. My parents didn't say why. Nobody mentioned his name. But something had shifted. I wasn't invisible anymore. Jason vanished after that day in my office. No more calls, no texts, no sarcastic remarks through the family group chat. It was like he'd been erased from the thread of everyone's lives, even though I knew he was still out there watching everything unravel. But it wasn't just him that changed. It was the family too. First it was subtle. My mom started texting me out of nowhere. asking about my day, telling me she was proud of me, sending photos of her cooking like we were friends now. My dad forwarded me an article about private equity, writing, "Thought this was your world?" Which made me pause more than anything Jason had ever said. It wasn't curiosity. It was respect. The next Sunday dinner was smaller. My cousin Ryan wasn't there. Neither was Aunt Teresa. My mom blamed schedule conflicts, but I could tell it was something else. Jason's absence made the room feel thinner, quieter. Nobody mentioned him. The seat he always took was still at the table, but no one sat there. It was like they were waiting to see if I'd say something. I didn't. Instead they asked me questions, real ones. About work, about the markets, about a fintech merger that had just hit the news. My uncle leaned in, genuinely curious about how venture capital actually works. Not one person made a joke about me being single. Not one smirk about me being married to my career. And when I spoke, they listened. Not with that half-glazed-over politeness they used to fake. They actually listened. It was surreal. The same family who used to laugh when Jason made me the punchline had now shifted their weight in my direction. I hadn't demanded it. I hadn't campaigned for it. But it happened. After dinner, when the dishes were done, my mom asked me to stay a little longer. Everyone else had filtered out or gone to the living room. She stood in the kitchen drying a glass and said, "Your brother's not doing well. I think he might be depressed. He won't return my calls. And I know you two haven't been close, but maybe you could reach out. Just to talk." I didn't say anything right away. I looked at her. This woman who for years had laughed at Jason's jokes and ignored mine. The same one who'd once told me, "He just teases you because he loves you." And now here she was, asking me to throw him a rope. "I'm not the one who made him feel like he couldn't fail," I said. She lowered the towel in her hands. "He's still your brother." I nodded. "He is. And I'm still your daughter." I left a few minutes later. As I walked to my car, I realized something I hadn't allowed myself to feel until that exact moment. I wasn't angry anymore. Because anger meant I still wanted something from them. Recognition. Apologies. Maybe even love. But I had already built a life without any of it. Now they were catching up. And Jason, he was alone. Just like he always said I'd be. Except I was alone at the top. And he was alone at rock bottom. Jason didn't call. Not the next day, not the next week. He just disappeared. The guy who used to make noise everywhere he went, group chats, social media, family dinners, was suddenly quiet. Too quiet. His name stopped coming up altogether. I knew why. He had nothing left to talk about. The company was gone. His title, his shares, his image. All of it buried in a deal he didn't even get to be part of. His co-founder had already moved on to another venture, one that was starting to get buzz. And Jason, he was drifting. I started hearing things. The kind of things that don't get posted online, just whispered between people who still keep track of who's up and who's done. Someone told me he'd been rejected from a mid-level operations role at a competitor. Another said he was trying to pitch a gritty solo founder comeback, and couldn't even land second meetings. He was asking for coffee chats now, not with investors but with junior associates. He'd fallen off the map in the worst way. But what struck me the most wasn't how far he'd fallen. It was how fast everyone forgot him. At the next family dinner, no one said his place. Not a word. No excuse. No, he's just busy. Nothing. Just silence, like he'd never been the center of every conversation for the last decade. I noticed my dad watching me more closely that night. Not judging, observing. My mom asked if I wanted to bring anything for next time. I'd never been asked that before. Then, between bites, my cousin asked me if I'd ever consider writing a book about my career. I almost laughed. Not because it was a bad idea, but because 2 years ago they wouldn't even let me finish a sentence. Now they wanted advice. Guidance. They listened when I spoke. I wasn't the outsider anymore. After dinner I went to the porch alone. It was quiet, but the kind of quiet that doesn't feel empty. It felt like space. Space that I had earned. That's when I got the text. No name, just a number I hadn't seen in months. "It's really over, isn't it?" That was it. No greeting. No explanation. Just that one sentence. I didn't reply. There was nothing else to say. He had made me the joke for years. I was the easy target. The sibling who didn't push back. Who they could overlook and still expect to show up. But now the balance had flipped. I hadn't humiliated him. I hadn't gone out of my way to destroy him. All I did was show up, do the work, and wait for the moment when everything he stood on cracked beneath him. And when it did, I didn't need to gloat. I'd already won. In every way that mattered, I was miles ahead and he was too far behind to catch up. The silence between us? That was the final chapter. Not a door slammed shut. Not a speech. Just silence. And it was perfect. Because in the end I got what I wanted. Not revenge. Not payback. Peace. The kind you only get when you finally stop needing the people who never gave you anything real to begin with. And that dining table? It was still full. Still loud. But not at my expense anymore. That chapter of my life was over. And this time I was writing the next one. Alone, maybe, but more powerful than I had ever been.